Welcome back to Rebuilding Silverwood. This is Swag, and in this episode I will be continuing the construction of Corkscrew, the aero looping coaster. And remember, we did layout last episode. This episode we are going to build the station, and we are going to put some supports on this coaster, as long as doing a detailed queue, and we're going to figure out the scrambler over here. So let's get to it. This is what I've come up with for the current station. I can't say I'm exactly proud of it. This is a very realistic rendering of what it would be if I kept as close to the original as possible. But I'm really having trouble with this roof and the verticality of the station itself, as well as how short the queue is. So I might be going back to the drawing board for this station. But for the time being, we're going to keep it, and we're going to keep building the queue, and the station might change here or there. So this station's going to look really new to you guys because I built a different station off screen. You can see I've started working on supports. Not 100% sure how we're going to do the supports on this, but this coaster type really sticks to like a lattice structure for the lift hill and the tallest sections of the ride, as well as some lattice over the corkscrews. And on some of the newer aero loopers, I say newer, they're still really old, they start to use posts or pillars or tubular supports, I guess you could call them. And we're going to have a mix of both. So we're going to figure out how we like that overall. And then, yeah, let's keep moving on. I am super pleased with these supports. I say we, a lot of people that I've been asking advice for this park on spent a lot of time kind of going through different variations on how to support this. So I'm really pleased with this lattice work. We used some glass walls. I used some diagonal tracketexture. I've still got to do the like tubular supports for like the loops and stuff. And then the exit and the queue needs an entrance. In the real park, they have sort of like a little barn building that you walk through. The exit and the entrance are both under that building, so we got to find a good area. I think I'm going to move it over so that from one perspective, you can get a clear entrance view. It's hard to do because these corkscrews in real life actually overlap the entrance. We're not going to be able to do that with the way we've designed the path layout, but I think we'll figure it out in the next few hours. Okay, so this is what the queue is going to look like. Obviously, the foliage is coming in little by little, but one of the big things that you got to think about when you build foliage is what is it going to block perspective-wise. So I don't like to do foliage until I'm really satisfied with the way the queue looks, with the pathing around it, with the other rides in the area. So to help us move this coaster along, I'm going to work on this scrambler down here. You can see this. The scrambler's like perfectly sat under this final turnaround. In real life, the coaster kind of goes around it and over it. Looks really cool. I'm going to try to emulate it as best as possible. It's a little tough because the scrambler itself is 3x3, and then any fencing that I want to do around the scrambler has to be on an even plot. So we're going to figure it out, but that's what I'm going to do to finish up this episode. I think we'll finish that up, and then we'll move on to a future episode. So here's your first look at the scrambler completely finished. I say completely finished, but you know, there's always things here and there that you can do to make the park better. I've got sort of a diagonal entrance and exit for the scrambler. The tough part about that is when you have a queue, the peeps will sometimes overlap the diagonal area. So if I clear the scenery, I guess I shouldn't say vegetation, you can kind of see the peeps go up to the wall and it doesn't look exactly the best. So I really am gonna probably utilize trees to block that perspective. Maybe a smaller tree than this in the future. You can see the foliage is sort of coming in. I've used the pathing and steel blocks to make the base layer, and I'm using foliage to block the perspective while trying not to crowd it too much. So you can see, like, through these supports, there's some gray that you can see that's outside of the fence. The average viewer or somebody that's looking at this is going to take a look at that scrambler and then move on. They're not going to focus on the details like that. I've learned that from looking at other people's finished parks. There will be details here and there where you're like, oh, that looks a little off if you focus, but the overall image is really what we're thinking about. So don't be too focused in fitting in foliage all the way around from every perspective, because then it just looks like you've got like a bush hedge going around the ride and it looks kind of funky. So keep in mind, perspectives are everything. You can use a tree, you can use a bush, you can use a ride. A lot of different objects can help you make your rides look good without having to be perfect. Yeah, you learn as you go through this that perfection is never going to be guaranteed with an NCSO, no custom object palette. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, so thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. The next episode, I will promise to go over that giant inverted boomerang that somebody caught in the last few episodes so that you guys can take a peek at that. That'll be a fun one to do.